investment really can pay off. James Collingwood from Weekly Hill in County Durham is 23. He was out of work for 3 years after training as a bricklayer. He'd sent out about 200 CVs to local companies but had heard nothing back. But his luck turned last month when he went on to the BBC Look North economy debate to tell his story.
I was in the waiting room, waiting to go onto the show, and I sat next to a gentleman called Robert Forrester, and I just started generally just talking to him, and I got to know that he was in the motor industry, and we just generally talked about how I've been finding it hard to get employment in the area.
Well, that Robert Forrester turned out to be the chief executive of Bristol Street Motors in Newcastle, and the two hit it off so much that Robert offered James a job as a trainee sales executive. James was naturally delighted because he admits it was a hard decision to go on television to tell his story.
I did find it quite hard to motivate myself to go on, like you say, national television and broadcast that I've been unemployed, but I always thought in the back of my head that opportunity may come to us if I did that, and it has came to us. I would consider myself to be really, really lucky how I sat next to Robert and actually got talking to him, because this opportunity wouldn't have arisen if I didn't do that. So I do feel really lucky, yeah.
So James started a week past Monday, but his new boss, Robert Forrester, told me it was nothing to do with luck.
I met him in the reception of the BBC, and clearly there were 15 people there, randomly chosen really from the northeast. And when I got talking to him, I couldn't quite believe that he'd never had a job and been unemployed for 3 years. He looked very presentable, seemed to have a lot of common sense, came across very well, and the fact that he volunteered to go on the BBC on a TV debate showed clearly he had something about him. So I suggested, when the debate had finished, that if he gave me his mobile number, we'd get together and see if there was an opportunity for him.
And at that point, did you actually have a particular job, a particular role, a particular vacancy in mind?
I think what James needed was an opportunity. What that opportunity was, I think, isn't fixed yet. We've brought him on board. We're going to train him so he can see all aspects of our business. We're a business that employs 3,000 people. We have technicians, sales executives, service advisors, all kinds of different job roles. He's been on sales training last week. He's in the dealership over the weekend, and we're just going to see if there's something that takes his fancy.
It's a great thing to do, but at the same time, you are a businessman. You're in the process of making money. Can you actually afford to take him on if he hasn't got a particular role, or is that a long-term strategy you're playing here?
We're looking for people with certain characteristics. We're looking for people with good character, energy, drive, good attitude, and I think that James has those. He comes across very professional, he shows a lot of enthusiasm, and if you've got those characteristics, we can train how to sell cars, how to be a service advisor, and we are continually looking at finding people who have those characteristics.
He's been employed for a long time, though. Is he ready, to go bang straight into the world of work? Has he got everything he needs? Has he got a suit and things like that?
I think this was the big question, wasn't it? Subsequent to the interview, went out and bought a suit. I thought that was a good sign, to be honest, because you're quite right. You need to look professional. I met him again on Saturday morning, and you couldn't differentiate between him from a professional standpoint to our other sales execs. He looked absolutely brilliant in terms of, if a customer met him, they would have thought he'd have been there for years.
Now, James has been lucky then. It's pretty unusual to get a job as a result of appearing on a television programme. But do you think that perhaps young people do need to think about other ways of trying to find employment rather than sitting at home and going through the local newspaper and sending off loads of CVs willy-nilly?
I think you could say it was luck that James got a job, but actually James made his own luck. He was on a training programme, and he was asked would he go on the BBC on a TV show to talk about being unemployed. To be honest with you, that was quite a big decision, I think, for him. TV is a scary place for most people, especially, I suspect, for somebody of 23 years of old. So I think he'd made his own luck in many ways by actually going on the BBC TV programme. How do unemployed people find a job? I think it's clearly very difficult in the current circumstances, but all I can say is you've got to exhibit the right characteristics, and showing you've been on training courses, done maybe unpaid work, internships, whatever, I think helps an employer to actually try and understand what characteristics you've got. Because all of an employer can go on really is, what have you done? And that's clearly quite difficult if you just sent 300 letters out, even though that's very hard work, and had no responses.
Are you now worried, though, that lots of people are going to be knocking on your door and saying, are you the same Robert Forrester I heard on the radio and I saw on the television? Can you give us a job as well?
We won't be giving giving anybody a job. I think James actually worked quite hard, both to come into the BBC and subsequently to get that job. But we are looking for people, all the time, in terms of, as we grow our business. We've grown from a business with 3 people 5 years ago to a business of 3,000 people now. But we certainly won't be able to absorb 3 million people unemployed.
That's Robert Forrester then from Bristol Street Motors in Newcastle. Well, the last word goes to James Collingwood, who's been given this opportunity. What's his advice then for young people who can't find work?
Keep faith, and an opportunity will arise if you've got the drive to actually find it. I mean, you don't get nowhere sitting in the house all day. You've got to actually get out and do stuff and look for opportunities. As Robert says, if I did send my CV to him with us having no experience, they wouldn't even take me into consideration. Because there's a lot of people out there who have got loads of experience who are struggling to find employment.
That's James Collingwood then from Weakley Hill in County Durham. He started work last week then after taking part in the BBC Look North debate on the economy. And you can see more on that story as well on Look North tonight at 6:30 on BBC One.